Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you're here, and I want to say you're in for a treat. We're going to Mars. Everybody up for that? Well, maybe you didn't bring your passport, so we'll have to stay here. But what you are going to hear about today is all the great assets and activities that are ongoing at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport on Wallops Island. From Wallops, transportation goes vertical. As you heard mentioned yesterday, transportation is not just horizontal, it can be vertical. From Mars, there are goods and services delivered to the International Space Station, and access is provided to space for scientific, commercial, defense-related purposes, and testing facilities for unmanned aircraft technologies. These activities and successes of Virginia Space wouldn't be possible without the great partnerships that have been formed between the Commonwealth, NASA, and others. Today, you're going to learn about this jewel of the Eastern Shore and hear from some of our partners. They will speak to their organizations, their relationships with Mars and Wallops, and the associated benefits that come from those relationships. And they also share with you some of their thoughts about the future of space. This morning's mission will be led by CEO and Executive Director of the Virginia Commercial Space Flight Authority, retired Major General Ted Mercer, Jr., assumed this role unbelievably just a few months ago, this past August, following the retirement of Dale Nash, who had led Virginia Space since 2012. General Mercer has a bio that would consume the session. So I'm going to shorten it just a little bit, Mr. Mercer, and by saying he has decades of experience in the aerospace field and executive leadership in the military, government, and the private sectors. He held leadership positions with the Federal Aviation Administration and with Government, Commercial, and International Initiatives Geospatial Systems, say that 3 times, a division of ITT Excelis. He also served our country for over 32 years in the United States Air Force, leading several commands to include the 30th Space Wing and a Space Lift Logistics Group. General Mercer, thank you for your service. General Mercer, I see you've assembled quite a panel, esteemed panel for this morning's discussion, and I'll let you introduce your panel members once you come up. But I want to just say, I want to leave you with this thought. As I kind of reflected, as the Secretary spoke yesterday, I reflected, and I thought, maybe this panel is actually a member short. For those of you that don't know, our very own Secretary, Dr. Shannon Valentine, has a doctorate in rocket science. General Mercer, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning. Good morning to everybody. Let me tell you that, hey, I'm proud to be here, proud to serve. Ready now, ready then, as we used to say, back in the good old day, back in the day. I'll tell you, it is an honor for me to do this and to be here, to be invited to do this. It's a privilege also for me to serve in a new capacity as the CEO and Executive Director of Virginia Space. It is one of the most exciting things that I've had an opportunity to do in my career. But before I get there, I got to tell you a story. And again, this is about Shannon Valentine. I'm going to talk a little more about her doctorate in a couple of minutes, because that was the Virginia Space. We generated that and presented that to her based on her commitment and service. And we'll talk some more about that here shortly. But before I get there, one of the things I think everybody saw yesterday is that the energy, the positive energy, that comes with Shannon Valentine is almost overwhelming for some. And it's a rare occasion where you see anybody with that kind of energy. And it reminded me of a story. In the deepest, darkest parts of Africa, every day the sun rises and the hungry lion knows that he must run faster than the slowest gazelle or he will perish. The gazelle knows that every day when the sun rises, he must run faster than the fastest lion or he will perish. The moral of this story, when the sun rises, everybody better be running. And I'm telling you, if you're going to be on Shannon Valentine's team, you better be, when the sun rises, you better be running. I'll share that with you. Hey, it's a great honor to be here. We have an esteemed special guest that's going to kick off our session today. We reached out through our great partnership with NASA, and we'll talk more about that later. But in our great partnership with NASA, we reached out to the esteemed NASA Administrator, Senator Bill Nelson, and asked him if he would be willing to join us today and open up this session. And indeed, Senator Nelson was extremely interested, wanted to be here, but his duties as a NASA Administrator took him elsewhere. So before we play his video, he wanted to have an opportunity to contribute to the conference today. But before we play his video, let me tell you just a little bit about him. Senator Bill Nelson was sworn in as the 14th NASA Administrator on May the 3rd, 2021. He's tasked with carrying out the Biden-Harris administration's vision for the agency. Nelson chaired the Space Subcommittee in the U.S. House of Representatives for 6 years and later served as a ranking member of the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, where he was recognized as a leading space program advocate in Congress. During his time in Congress, Nelson was a strong advocate for NASA's Earth science programs and authored numerous pieces of legislation to combat and mitigate the efforts of climate change. Nelson was also a vocal proponent of STEM career training and education programs to create and fill the jobs of the future. In 2010, Nelson and Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson passed the landmark NASA legislation that mapped out a new future for NASA and set the agency on its present dual course of both government and commercial missions. In 2017, Nelson and Senator Ted Cruz authored the NASA Transition Authorization Act of 2017, which expanded NASA's commercial activities in space. And then after leaving the Senate, Nelson continued to be engaged in NASA activities, serving on the NASA Advisory Council under former Administrator Jim Bridenstine. From president of 4-H to international president of the Key Club in high school, Nelson has always known the importance of investing your neighbors and community to create a better future. Nelson continued to serve his community and country while in college at the University of Florida, Yale, and the University of Virginia Law School through various service organization, school, and school leadership positions. He served on active duty as a captain in the United States Army. Nelson has served in public service over 4 decades, first in the state legislature and U.S. Congress, then as the state treasurer. He was elected 3 times to the United States Senate, representing Florida for 18 years. His committees include the breadth of government policy from defense, intelligence, foreign policy to finance, commerce, and health care. In 1986, he flew the 24th flight of the space shuttle. The mission on Columbia orbited the Earth 98 times over 6 days. Nelson conducted 12 medical experiments, including the first American stress test in space and cancer research experiment sponsored by the university researchers. In 1971, Bill met Grace Calvert of Jacksonville, Florida, while speaking at a statewide Young Leader Convention. Grace has been an active partner in Bill's public service career from his first race for seat in Florida legislature, and Grace has been by his side knocking on doors, talking to folks and issues that matter to them and their families. They have 2 grown children, Bill Jr. and Nan Ellen. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Bill Nelson.
Every day
again, thanks to Senator Nelson for that. He absolutely wanted to be here, but circumstances did not allow it, but he took the time to send his message to us and his never wavering and his outstanding support. Well, I was asked to come and talk about Virginia space and Mars, so we're going to do that. But I learned a long time ago that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So what I ask you to do, focus your attention on the screens, the monitors to your right and to your left, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is Virginia space.
Well, I guess I have to be honest about that, and some of it is just pure outright boyhood interest in sort of things that fly.
I gotta tell you, few things are more exciting or moving than launching rockets. I gotta tell you. And I'll tell you, if your heart rate is not moving a little bit faster right now, check your pulse, because you might be dead. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Virginia space. That is Mars. That's what we do every day. And so I'd like to take now from what you've seen from the beginning all the way to where we are today. That is Mars. And I'd like to now put a finer point on it. Let's talk about more specifically what you saw in that brief clip. These are the things we're going to talk about today. We'll give you a little bit more on the background. We're going to talk about our launch pads. We're going to talk about our facilities. We're going to talk about our workforce. Nothing gets done without people. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's on the horizon, what's coming next. Next slide. Next. Okay, you saw Mr. Billy Reid. It all began with him in 1995. The Virginia commercial space flight was established by the General Assembly in 1995. Dr. Billy Reid was the first to take the helm as executive director, and he kept that until 2012 when he retired. And then he was subsequently followed by Mr. Dale Nash. And Mr. Dale Nash took it from 2012 until 1 August of this year when he handed the reins to me. And most of what you saw in that video was what Dale Nash picked up from Billy Reed and executed from 2012 to today. So we've made some marvelous progress, and so we've had 3 executive directors. We've had Billy Reed, we've had Dale Nash, who took it to the next level, and now the reins have been handed to me to continue the legacy of the great work that they've established. The first successful launch out of Wallops was in December of 2006, and I like this quote that was from Mr. Reed. He said, "Discovered a spaceport jewel on the Eastern Shore, and we started promoting it." That's how we got here. Next slide. The Commercial Spaceflight Authority is responsible for developing aerospace activities in Virginia. That is our charter. We own and operate. Virginia Space owns and operates the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport. We are headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia, but most of our people are up at Wallops Island. That's where the activity and the agency and the work really takes place. We are a tenant organization on the Wallops Flight Facility, run, owned, and operated by Mr. Dave Pierce. You'll hear more about that and our partnership here shortly when Mr. Pierce talks about our partnership and joins our panel. Next slide. Okay, nothing though occurs without committed leadership, without committed vision and a commitment to that vision. And I can tell you that in my 3 months in this job, having to experience and interface with Governor Northam and Secretary Valentine, I would tell you that I've been around this business a long time. And I tell you everything from lift, I've worked in everything from lift to satellites to launch. And I will tell you that I have never seen, have yet to see, a commitment to a vision, a commitment to a mission, a commitment to a capability than I have seen from Governor Northam and Secretary Valentine. I salute you and I thank you. Next slide. Okay, we were talking about that commitment, but it continues, right? It continues. I think it's important to show what has actually taken place under Governor Northam and Secretary Valentine. And we'll learn more about each of these facilities on this slide. The Mars Payload Processing Facility, Mars Pad 0C, or Launch Complex 2 it's called, Mars Integration and Control Facility. All of this construction was generated, executed, built, and operated under Governor Northam and Chancellor Valentine's leadership while they were in the chair. That's commitment, because none of that happens without resources. 9 successful launches under Governor Northam and Secretary Valentine. 9 successful launches. And in the launch business, the successful piece is the most important part of that, right? And the Commonwealth continues to invest. They put the Commonwealth puts its money where its mouth is for these resources, totaling over $168 million has been committed and executed, and you'll see some of that breakdown as we continue to walk through this. That commitment is what drove what Mr. Lawson talked about earlier, Virginia Space wanting to do something to recognize the commitment of Secretary Valentine and her commitment to us, the commitment to Mars, the commitment to jobs, the commitment to economic prosperity for the Eastern Shore. And so the team came up with the idea of a doctorate in rocket science because of her commitment. That's where it came from. And I can't take credit for that. That was Mr. Nash and the rest of the team that put that together. But we recognize that Secretary Valentine is married to a doctor, so we said, well, let's put her on equal footing. How about that? But that was truly a commitment.
Well, you may not be able to. I told my husband, anybody can get a doctorate in cardiology.
But that was our way of recognizing and saying thank you for the commitment and the support, the true commitment and support. Next slide. Next one. Okay, we're going to go individually in each of these launch pads. Basically, we have 3 launch pads. We'll talk about each one here shortly. The thing I want to point out on this slide, though, is the economic impact of the business cluster on the Eastern Shore. And there are several of us in that cluster. It's obviously Virginia Space, it's NASA, it's Northrop Grumman, and several others. But the point is that $1.37 billion economic impact is all on the Eastern Shore. And that is what we are chartered to do. Next slide. Let's talk about Pad A. Pad A is a liquid fuel capability. That's where we launched the liquid fuel rockets from. It is the launch site for the Northrop Grumman Antares launch vehicles. We're one of only 2 spaceports that Northrop Grumman uses to resupply the International Space Station. We do about half. Cape Canaveral does about the other half. The Antares is capable of servicing or launching, putting into orbit, some 18,600 pounds. One of the things that is unique that was developed through a partnership with us was what you see here, this mobile 24-hour payload load capability. NASA determined that they needed to do some perishable loading less than 24 hours prior to launch. Well, less than 24 hours prior to launch, the rocket is elevated on the pad. Makes that kind of tough. But we figured that out. Working together, we figured it out. We had the ability to bring that rocket back down to a horizontal position, use this mobile processing capability that actually goes up, attaches to the payload. They're able to put those perishable items in within 24 hours. We then re-elevate that rocket, and within 24 hours, we launch it, and it's on its way to the space station. Next slide. That's Pad A. That's what it looks like when it leaves Pad A. The next launch for Pad A is designated NG-17. We expect to do that one in February. We are already beginning that launch campaign up at Mars, getting ready. We're going to go back and resupply the space station again in February. Next slide. Pad B, this is our solid rocket pad. You'll see them ruling the gantry back here. That's the mobile service tower, the gantry they're rolling back to get that out of the way that's used to service that rocket. The Commonwealth, what is interesting here is the Commonwealth has invested over $2 million. Over $2 million investment in this pad. It is the launch site for Northrop Grumman's Minotaur class of rockets. Again, all solid fuel, capable of lifting up to 8,400 pounds to orbit. And the investment from the Commonwealth provided that mobile service structure, lightning protection, and security systems for Pad 0B. So Pad A is liquid fuel, Pad B is solid fuel. Next slide. That's what it looks like when it leaves Pad 0B. Now, here's the test. I know you didn't think there wasn't going to be a test, right? Here's the test. What's the difference in those 2 launches that you just saw? Anybody, just shout it out. What do you think? Notice any difference? Speed. That solid rocket gets off the ground a whole lot faster than that liquid one does. But the liquid can lift a little bit more. So it's a trade-off, right? So you need them both. The nation needs them both. Pad 0C. This pad was built exclusively for the Rocket Lab company to launch their Electron rocket from. It is the first launch capability for Rocket Lab on U.S. soil, the Electron. What is amazing about this is that Virginia Space and Mars was able to build this pad from groundbreaking to full operational status in 11 months. Ladies and gentlemen, that's less than a year. We were able, from groundbreaking to complete operational status in less than a year. And that pad is ready to go. We expect to launch an Electron off there sometime in 2022. The Commonwealth has invested some $14.2 million in this pad and the integrated control facility. Commitment. The Commonwealth puts its money where its mouth is. Next slide. Partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't do this alone. We can't do it alone. We already talked about the Commonwealth commitment and what that means. We have to have that to be able to stay alive, to stay viable, and to do what we do. But along with that are other partners upon which we cannot operate without. NASA, the Wallops Flight Facility, and you'll hear more about that from Mr. Dave Pierce. But we cannot launch out of Wallops without the NASA Wallops Flight Facility and what they do for us. Interfacing the range, scheduling, safety, and operations. All of that falls in NASA's lap. You know, Mr. Dave Pierce and I, 3 months ago, came to the conclusion that, hey, we got to be locked at the hip, and indeed we are. We generally travel together, we carry our messages together, and we synchronize what we're going to say to anybody when it comes to the Wallops Flight Facility. That partnership is strong, it is enhanced, and it allows us to do our launch operations. Of course, without our customers, Northrop Grumman, Rocket Lab, and others, that customer service is key to economic development. That's how you grow, is you got to have customers to do that. They're part of our partnership. The Defense Department, the Department of Defense, many of our missions are national security missions. We work with the U.S. Space Force, the Air Force, the United States Navy, and others, as well as intelligence community organizations of many of our missions. What's on top of that rocket is a national security payload. And then we work with the universities and institutions. That's where we get the talent, right? We consider ourselves a marvelous feeder for this industry. We take fresh engineers fresh out of college, hire them into our organization, give them engineering experience, real-world engineering experience launching rockets. They stay with us for 4 or 5 years, and then Kurt Eberly goes and steals them from us. And over in Northrop Grumman side, they go work for Northrop Grumman over there. You know, but that's okay. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So we have those partnerships. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our intelligence partners, the intelligence community, and our partnership with Accomack County. And we'll learn a little bit more about that in the future. We can't do it without partners. And I don't want it to seem like we are doing this all on our own, because we do not. It's those partnerships that allow us to get this done. Next slide. Next. Okay, let's talk about the facilities. We mentioned the integration and control facility. The Commonwealth between Launch Complex 2 and the ICF, $14.2 million. This facility is indeed owned by Virginia Space and the Commonwealth, and we lease it to Rocket Lab for their use. It was uniquely designed to be able to integrate several rockets inside that building at the same time, specifically designed for that. And through that, then allows Rocket Lab to be efficient in their business model to do that. We house everything that you would think about, control rooms, office space, but one of the things our customers like most about it is that it's only 9 miles from the launch pad. 9 miles. They can integrate, build, get their payload there and on their rocket and take it out to 9 miles, and it's ready to be installed on the pad. Next slide. The Mars Payload Processing Facility, we call it the PPF, a state-of-the-art and amazing capability designed in partnership with our IC and other customers so that we can simultaneously, and you will find few payload processing facilities that can do this, where we can simultaneously process both highly classified and unclassified commercial payloads at the same time in the same facility. Almost unheard of. We are uniquely designed to that. Once again, what's our Commonwealth done for us? The only reason this exists is the Commonwealth has invested well over $29 million to have that building, get it up and running. The other thing that we can do in here that is unique to some degree is that we can actually do hypergolic fueling inside the payload processing facility. We can do it all in here to include stage integration. And what you see here on the right side of this slide is an actual Minotaur mission payload that's being integrated inside this facility. Next slide. We've got a marvelous unmanned systems capability. Our Mars Airfield today is the go-to location in Virginia for multiple domain training and testing of UAS systems. What you see in the middle is a Navy UAV. That UAV, it's not like a little drone that you go and buy, in the store. That thing is the size of a full-size helicopter, and it's a drone. It's a drone. And you see it here flying out operations there. We have a 3,000-foot, 75-wide UAS airfield with a concrete vertical takeoff and landing pad incorporated in it. It's got all the facilities from hangar capability to communications that a customer needs when they come to us. And in fact, the Navy just left with their newest version of this capability. They just left this week. And they will be back in a couple more weeks for further integrated testing at our airfield. What's this mean? Our usage continues to increase. In fiscal year 20, we had 157 sorties. In 21, that went to 179 sorties, and we're on track this year to far exceed 179 sorties. It is there. It is being used thanks to our Commonwealth investment, and you can see $16.9 million in the various facilities out there supporting that operation. Commitment, commitment, commitment. Next slide. Next. We can't do it without people. None of this can be done without people. And we have committed ourselves to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I learned this a long time ago, a couple of different careers ago, that diversity is our nation's strength, and we need to take advantage of it. Don't waste it. We want to take advantage of it. We recruit and empower a diverse workforce. It is a commitment on our part. We just established a whole series of core values upon which this company will reside, beginning with integrity. It all starts with integrity. That is what your customers look for and believe, and that's what we do. Respect and inclusion. We talk about creating an environment, a positive environment, where everybody get an opportunity to reach their full potential. Service. Service before self. Serving something that is bigger than you. And then excellence in everything that we do, because excellence goes to execution. And as we said, the key to a launch is the word successful, right? Excellence in all we do. In fact, our motto is now excellence is our standard. And so be it. And we have 23% of our workforce. 23% of our workforce are women. That's good. That's almost a quarter of our workforce, but we can do better. And we're going to do better. Next slide. We are about 100 employees, and that's by design and by intention. Because we need to provide, that's part of our value proposition to our customers, is that we are a lean organization that can provide 100% launch success capability for you at a very competitive price. That's our value proposition. Will we always stay at 100? It depends on our workload and what we go to. We may have to grow some based on the operations tempo. One of our customers is talking about having an operations tempo of launching 12 launches or 12 rockets a year, once a month. Well, we're going to have to grow our workforce a little bit to be able to do that. But we will never lose sight of our value proposition that we want to stay lean. And we do everything. We own the entire value chain when it comes to our launch pads, providing that capability for our customers. We do that with 100 people. Next slide. We have a marvelous internship program, one of the finest I've seen, anywhere. When you look at 20% of our workforce come from our interns. 20% of our workforce. In this last class that you see here in 2021, it completed in August. We've already hired, before September, we had hired 5 of these young people out of that class. And the same applies to most of these other classes. We bring them on board. 20% of our workforce are the interns that we hire, that Kurt Eberly steals later. But that's another story. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so what's coming? We've kind of outgrown our capability at in the facilities that we lease from NASA. We've just outgrown them. The Commonwealth has invested $5.1 million in a new facility. It's only 14,000 square feet. It will be located right here in between the two main pads, A and pad B. It's going to be right here. And this will allow a great deal of efficiency designed for our technical team to be located between the two, and it operates located to provide the entire launch pad maintenance and support team. Will be able to be housed inside this single building instead of, the way we are today, several buildings out on the pads. That's coming. We expect to drop that RFP sometime before the end of the year. Next slide. Rocket Lab's Neutron is coming. The Neutron is coming. We are talking in Rocket Lab right now today about this. And you can see, this is Peter Beck, the CEO of Rocket Lab, standing inside the payload fairing. You can see that's a pretty big system. You're talking about a rocket that's 131 feet tall, some almost 15 feet in diameter, but can lift some 17,000 pounds, put up complete constellations in a single rocket launch. They want their only launch pad to be Mars in the United States. Rocket Lab and Neutron is coming. Next slide. Manufacturing capability. This is something that is essential to bringing business to the region, right? The ability to manufacture and integrate in the same place you want to launch. It takes out the logistics of having to ship across country or across the ocean. Virginia Space has purchased 28 acres. 28 acres just outside. This is the gate to the NASA Wallops Flight Facility. 28 acres that would be in wonderful proximity to build manufacturing capability and integration capability to bring customers to this business. We have successfully worked with Accomack County to rezone that area. That's all done. They did it in record time. It is now zoned, not residential, but for industrial use. So we have what we need. We'll begin preparing this land here within the next couple of months. It helps to bring new space companies to Virginia. That's the point. New space companies bring new jobs. And then finally, we've got a port on the horizon. The port concept will allow us to be able to offer other companies an opportunity to return a first stage to the ocean, use a barge, then to bring it back to the port, take it back to their launch pad, refurbish it, restack it, and launch it again. That's the advantage to a spaceport, and then also for our DoD customers using submersible testing activity in our port. That's on the horizon. Next slide. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Virginia Space and Mars. That's what we do. And I'm more than happy to take a couple of questions before we transition to our panel. Are there any questions that I might answer at this point in time before we go to our panel? Well, then I have one final story for you. And this one is related to Virginia Space and Mars, and where we go next. And this story was a long time ago in a small village in Japan. There was an old wise man in this village that had never been wrong in his predictions. And so two young teenagers had decided that they were going to fool the wise man. They figured they had a foolproof plan. And so one teenager says to the other, I got a foolproof plan. I'm going to go capture a small bird. And I'm going to hold that bird behind my back. And I'm going to ask the wise man, is the bird dead or is the bird alive? If the wise man says that the bird is alive, I'm going to crush that bird in my hand and reveal to him that he was wrong. If he says that the bird is dead, I'll reveal to him, open my hand and let that bird fly away and prove that he was wrong. So they both agreed, this is a foolproof plan. We can't miss with this. So they go find the wise man. And they say, wise man, what do I have in my hand? And the wise man says, a bird. And the young teenager says, well, is the bird dead or is the bird alive? And the wise man pauses for just a few seconds. And he says, the fate of the bird is in your hands. Ladies and gentlemen, the fate of Virginia space is in the governor and the secretary's hands. Well, thank you very much. Now we have a wonderful panel of distinguished members in the space and the launch business. So I would ask my panel if you would join me on the stage, please, for our panel discussion. I'm going to read the bios of each of these individuals because it is important for you to see how distinguished the careers and the professions are of our distinguished guests. So we'll introduce them one at a time, give them an opportunity to make their presentations, and then we'll take questions from them. First is Mr. David L. Pierce, the director for NASA Wallops Flight Facility. Mr. Dave Pierce is the director of the Goddard Space Flight Center's Wallops Flight Facility on Virginia's Eastern Shore. As the Wallops Flight Facility Director, Mr. Pierce leads NASA's suborbital science research using sounding rockets, scientific balloons, airborne space science aircraft, small spacecraft, and the agency's only owned and operated launch range. Wallops, as a multi-tenant, multi-user facility, is a one-of-a-kind, unique national asset. Together with its mission partners, such as Virginia Space and the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport, Wallops is a leader in providing safe, cost-effective access to space to meet government and commercial sector needs for accessing flight regimes worldwide, from the Earth's surface to the moon and beyond. Mr. Pierce has more than 35 years of project and program management experience at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, and prior to his appointment in 2019 as the NASA Wallops Director, Pierce served as the Deputy Director for Institutions, Programs, and Business Management in Goddard's Science and Exploration Directorate from 2016 to 2018. He also served as NASA Wallops Deputy Director, assisting the management of Wallops and its program and institutional elements. Between 2011 and 2016, Pierce served as the Senior Program Executive for suborbital research at NASA headquarters, overseeing the implementation of NASA's suborbital program, a broad portfolio of aircraft, science balloons, sounding rockets, and small satellite research missions. Mr. Pierce served as NASA's Balloon Program Office Chief from 2004 to 2011, where he was responsible for overseeing the NASA's balloon program, as well as Columbia Scientific Balloon Facility located in Palestine, Texas. Pierce served as program manager within the Explorers program from 1998 to 2004. The nation's oldest flight program, managing university-class Explorer and small Explorer missions. He started his career at NASA Wallops working as an aerospace engineer in the aircraft programs branch, modifying research aircraft to meet Earth science community needs and serving as a mission manager on airborne science field campaigns. Mr. Pierce earned his bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from North Carolina State University in 1986 and his master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Virginia in 1994. He has received numerous individual and group achievement awards throughout his career and was awarded NASA's Exceptional Service and Exceptional Achievement Medals. Mr. Pierce is the 2021 recipient of the Meritorious Presidential Rank Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Pierce.
Thank you, Ted. I'm reminded all the time when I speak that I never want to follow small children or astronauts, and now I'm going to add to that list not following General Ted Mercer. It's my honor to be here today on behalf of the nearly 2,000 women and men of NASA's Wallops Flight Facility, and also for my boss, Dennis Andrusik, who is the Center Director for Goddard Space Flight Center. It's just an honor to be here in our 76th year to be able to talk about how we work together with Virginia Space to carry out the nation's mission. But also to thank Secretary Dr. Shannon Valentine, not just for her partnership over all these years with Dennis and formerly Dr. Scalise, but also your friendship and being such a proponent of Wallops and how it fits into the Commonwealth, and advocating that this is such an important component with Governor Northam to invest over $300 million in the facility. And so Madam Secretary's legacy to all of us will be having enabled us to carry the mission forward, and I'll tell you just a little bit about that in terms of what we project. And it is truly amazing where the facility as part of the Commonwealth is going. It's an exciting time for all of us who are involved in aerospace, aviation, and exploration in the Commonwealth, and no more so than to the women and men that work at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility. Next slide, please. Or I think I can do this myself. Yeah, cool. We like to say that Wallops is a unique national asset. We are unique in the sense that we are one of only 4 orbital launch facilities in the United States. We are unique as a multi-user, multi-agency facility, and we are unique in the partnership with the Commonwealth of Virginia, with Virginia Space, led by General Ted Mercer, and so far as we represent with Northrop Grumman the very best in the nation in public-private partnership. What we have done together as a team over the last 25 years with Virginia Space is truly remarkable, and it's really encouraging for all of us every day who get to work together on this team between NASA, Virginia Space, and our launch partners to see what's the promise and the sheer explosion, literally, of our mission at Wallops. It couldn't happen without our partnership, and that is truly unique, and we are very grateful for that partnership, and we are very grateful for the Commonwealth and also the General Assembly for the constant leadership and support for Wallops. I also would like to say that our sole mission is to focus on supporting science, exploration, aeronautics, and providing that assured access to space. In spite of the pandemic, just in this past year, we kept folks safe, and we launched over 27 missions with 100% success. I mean, that really speaks to the people and the professionalism and the dedication of our team. And as we increase our launch tempo, our assured access to space, our responsive access to space, to the mission, to NASA as well as to the nation, we recognize that we have to be ready to go. We, as General Mercer said, when the sun comes up, we got to run fast. And we are doing that at Wallops Flight Facility. We manage the nation's suborbital mission. Our sounding rockets, we launch about 25 sounding rockets a year. We launch between 15 and 20 scientific balloon missions, and we do this around the globe. We manage a Bermuda tracking station to support both our commercial access to space with support for Antares, as well as what we will support, as Senator Nelson mentioned, supporting Artemis from Wallops. We look forward to testing out those technologies and rapidly protoflighting technologies that are going to enable astronauts to go to the surface of the moon and live in space. We, with our launch vehicles from Wallops, we are going to support carrying payloads directly to the moon's surface, and we look forward to supporting, after going to the moon sustainably, onto Mars. So it's an exciting future with them, as well as developing that next generation of Earth science satellites using our aircraft, and developing small satellites for both science, technology, where we test out those technologies before it's infused in a larger satellite mission to lower that risk. Doing all of this with Virginia Space. It's an economic engine, not just to our region, but it's also a source of inspiration for our next generation of scientists and engineers, where they can come to Virginia Space and Wallops and have authentic hands-on experiences. Our students that come from across the country, they come in and they design, build, test, and fly a payload on a suborbital or an orbital vehicle. How cool is that? It's their seminal moment where they realize that they want to be space technologists, they want to be astronauts, and it all starts coming through the gates at Wallops, through the Commonwealth. We're really grateful for that partnership as well. Our research range has enjoyed incredible investment over the past 10 years, whether it's a new mission operation control facility, a revamped tracking facility at Bermuda, new launch capabilities out on the island. We just finished a $25 million beach replenishment project to support and to protect our $1.5 billion in launch vehicle assets. We have completed a brand new fire station. We look forward to, as the #1 priority from Senator Nelson, to replace our 60-year-old bridge going over to Wallops Island with a brand new bridge in 2023. So the combined investment between NASA and the Commonwealth is really unheard of in terms of the space technology and facility investments that are going on at Wallops. Truly amazing and enabling our mission of the future. And where are we going in our future? It's really amazing that NASA Wallops, and with the spaceport and with our commercial partners, Rocket Lab, Northrop Grumman, it represents an economic engine, of course, in the region, contributing over $1.4 billion annually, but also touching over 6,000 jobs. And infusing it in both the Commonwealth and the state of Maryland, in Delaware. And so we enjoy a broad support from across the federal government, and it recognizes that where we are headed in our next step in support of commercial space and support of the nation and DoD is with a very high launch rate. As we anticipate, Antares will be extended to support the International Space Station to 2030. Where we see that our science missions will increase in terms of sounding rocket and balloon launches for the years to come, where we see our support for DoD missions to support hypersonics and other tests that we need to provide for the safety and defense of the national security missions, support of the National Reconnaissance Office. We see our deep space support for our astronauts through the Artemis program, that we see a combined launch rate continuation and a ramp up, as Ted was just talking about, of whether it's 12 launches a year for commercial providers, new commercial nanos launch customers coming in. And why do they want to come to Wallops? It's because we're cheap, we're fast, we're quick response, and we're all about getting the mission done. Where we see this going also is standardizing and providing standard ways to support these customers to be able to support this increased launch cadence. The emerging commercial nano-launch market is ideal for Wallops. We think we're really well suited for it and the multi-users that we see in the future. So if we only do half of this many a year, it's going to be a record every year. So this is a heady time for us, as I said. It's very exciting. And again, it's the legacy of Madam Secretary Valentine and the administration and the support we get from the General Assembly that's enabled this. We're really excited about the future at Wallops for both NASA and the nation. And where do we see our 5-year strategy over the time? We're going to extend our suborbital capability. That's our day job, right, of supporting science, exploration, technology of NASA. But it's also to support the nation. It's being quick, assured access to space with its new lines of access to space with the emerging commercial nano-launch capabilities, leveraging all this space tech investment to be able to support the warfighter, and integrating, as Ted was already mentioning, our airfield and our UAS runway as the place to be with our restricted airspace and access to vacapes in the warning areas off the Virginia coast to be the preferred place for aeronautical research of that next generation of aircraft from Wallops in the Commonwealth. And of course, supporting increased orbital launch model, as I mentioned, and it's all undergirded by supporting a diverse workforce. We have increased our internship opportunities at the Wallops complex, our partnerships with historic black colleges and universities in the Commonwealth, as well as our other universities. This year, just recently, I guess it was just last week, as a matter of fact, NASA was announced as the #1 internship provider in the nation. We beat out Google. And it's the preferred place for internships in the country. And we think Wallops plays a huge role in that. But it's not NASA, it's Northrop Grumman and it's Virginia Space, all working together with our local schools and in the schools. So we're changing the lives of young men and women across the Commonwealth. And we're very proud of that, as much as we are about the launch rate. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have, or actually we'll wait for our questions. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Dave. Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, Dave Pierce, and he's eager to answer any questions that you might have when we get to that portion of the panel. Next is Mr. Kurt Eberly, Director of Space Launch for Northrop Grumman Space Systems. Mr. Kurt Eberly is the Director of Space Launch within Northrop Grumman Space Systems, where he manages the Antares, Minotaur, and Pegasus programs. Previously, he served as Antares Program Manager from 2017 to 2020, and Deputy Program from 2007 to 2017, where he helped lead the Antares team to conduct cargo resupply launches for NASA to the International Space Station. In 2017, NASA awarded him the Exceptional Public Service Medal in recognition of his proven leadership. From 2004 to 2007, Mr. Eberly held the position of Director of Systems Engineering for the Launch Systems Group, where he managed systems engineering assigned to all launch vehicle programs. From 2001 to 2004, Mr. Eberly led the ground-based mid-course defense boost vehicle integration and test effort located at Vandenberg Air Force Base, California, where he oversaw integration of his first 6 orbital boost vehicles and several booster flight tests. Prior assignments spanning 1991 to 2001 include engineering manager for launch vehicle integration and test at Vandenberg and mission engineer for Pegasus launches of small satellites into low Earth orbit. Mr. Eberly received a BS and an MS in aeronautics and astronautics from MIT in 1989 and 1991. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kurt Eberly.
All right, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right, well, first, I'm really happy to be here to represent Northrop Grumman. I'd like to address some of these charges that have been leveled against me in terms of poaching workforce. I got 2 words for you, Ted, and that's Dan Givens. Okay? Dan Givens. Okay. He was placed on waivers, and we had a good. So I joke about this, but this is what we want at the Eastern Shore and at the launch site, right? We want a talented workforce. We want to trade folks back and forth. Aaron, welcome to the waiver situation down at Wallops, and Dave Pierce. We've all exchanged personnel, and that's what we want in a burgeoning workforce that's capable of supporting a vibrant space community in Virginia. So it's all good, and we play nice together, and hopefully we'll continue to play nice together. All right, let's go ahead here. I'm showing a picture of my bumper sticker, and I hope everybody can get one of these. Maybe Secretary Valentine, we could reinvigorate this tourism campaign to represent Virginia accurately to the rest of the country. Anyway, this is a picture of the rockets that we launch at Northrop Grumman, and all of these rockets have launched from Wallops. How about that? So on the right is the Antares medium launcher. To the left of that is a Minotaur using Peacekeeper motors. So Minotaur is a program in concert with what was the Air Force, now it's the Space Force, to take decommissioned strategic motors that are decommissioned by the START Treaty and placed into storage and use them for space launch purposes rather than having to dispose of them in another way. So these are taxpayer already purchased assets that we can turn into space launch. So Minotaur with the Peacekeeper version on the right, and then to the left of that with the funny green looking first stage, that's a Minuteman-based vehicle called Minotaur 1. The reason it's green is it has insulation on it, and these motors exist in a silo. And you may have seen in the video the yellow banana that's placed around the rocket, and that's to make these motors feel like they're in a silo thermally and keep them at the right temperature for launch. So that's the Minotaur 1. 28 out of 28 successful Minotaur missions for the nation. We're really proud of that. And to the left of that is Pegasus. People may not remember that we've launched 7 Pegasi out of Wallops Island. So Wallops Island also has a very capable airport and airport controls capable of handling those kind of operations for horizontal takeoff. All right, let's go ahead. So Northrop Grumman, we are headquartered here in Virginia, just a few miles away in Falls Church is our headquarters building. We've also got the headquarters of 2 of our 4 operating sectors. These are pretty big sectors. We've got over 90,000 total employees in Northrop Grumman, so we're pretty big. We've got 6,300 employees in Virginia. They come from all of the universities. We have a great internship program. We're really happy about it. And I'm glad that Ted mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's a big play at Northrop Grumman, and we'll talk more about that in a second. We've got partnerships with over 1,400 suppliers in Virginia. Out in Dulles, where my office is located near Dulles Airport, we have a satellite manufacturing facility. And that's where we manufacture the Cygnus spacecraft. We also control it. Once it's launched from Wallops, it's taken over by our engineers in a control facility right here in Dulles. So that's 24/7 operations to rendezvous with the space station 2 days later and control that right here from Virginia. And then we also, just to mention out here in Dulles, the mission extension vehicle. You may have heard about this. This is the first commercial vehicle that has robotically docked with another spacecraft in orbit. So we did this with the ComSat up in geosynchronous orbit, and we've taken over the station keeping for that satellite. A lot of these ComSats have about a 15-year life, but they run out of fuel. Everything else is working great. Solar panels, antennae, and so on. And we come along with an electric-powered vehicle. We grab onto it, and then we perform that station keeping operation and extend the life of these satellites. So that's a really innovative new capability that we're bringing from Virginia. And then we have the launches out of Wallops. And don't worry, I'm not going to just talk here and bore you. I've got a video coming up. Every rocket presenter should have a rocket video to show you. So that's coming up. Just be patient. All right, so Antares Cygnus. That's what we're involved in out of Wallops. We just had 2 launches this year, carrying quite a bit of cargo to the space station. And we carry cargo up there, and the astronauts are super excited when they open the hatch, and they usually have some fresh food for them in a care pack. But then, if you see on the lower left, that's what they see when they open the hatch. They wear masks at first in case there's some debris or other that came loose during ascent. And then what we're graded on is whether that cargo is in the same place when it arrives on the station as when it was packed on the ground. We're like Space FedEx. NASA never owns the rocket. They never buy a satellite. They're buying a service from us. And when you ship something on FedEx, you don't care whether they use a truck or a car or an airplane. You just want your package to get there. And that's how NASA has approached the Commercial Resupply Services program, which has been very successful. They're buying a service. They're not buying the product. So it's a different paradigm, and we're starting to see that across different sectors of the government. When they open that hatch, they see a poster for how we've named Cygnus, and we named this one that just launched in August, the SS Ellison Onizuka. He was the first Asian American astronaut to launch into space on the shuttle, and he unfortunately perished in the Challenger accident. So we're really excited. We highlight a lot of the diverse astronauts and important figures in history through this commercial resupply program. But okay, so I told you the astronauts are really excited when they get they open the hatch, they see all the cargo. There's usually some fresh food in there. We've also delivered some pizzas. We have never met the 30 minutes or less promise from Domino's. It's just not going to happen, so just get your expectations. But one of the things we found that NASA really appreciates is after all that cargo is taken out of the Cygnus, it's packed full of trash. And the astronauts get really excited about this. And so to explain this to you, imagine you're going camping and you have a big tent and you're going camping with 5 of your friends, okay? And there's 6 of you in this big tent and the toilet is in the tent, in the corner of the tent. And you can't throw anything away, okay? Everything's inside the tent, okay? And things are going along. You can imagine it might be getting a little ripe in there. And then every now and then the dumpster shows up. Imagine how happy you would be when the dumpster shows up and you start throwing stuff away. So that's also part of our service. It's a less glamorous part, but it's taking out the pressurized trash from inside the space station and disposing of it after the fact. Okay. We also marked the 20-year anniversary of ISS. Folks may not know that we have had humans living and operating in space continuously for 20 years, from 2000 through 2020. That milestone just passed last November. And we have played a key part in supplying the astronauts with food and necessary cargo for those 20 years since 2013. So we've been launching cargo since 2013. 37,054 kilograms of cargo have been delivered from Virginia via our service in that time frame. I'll also highlight over on the right the Minotaur 1. So this is the Minuteman-based version from Pad 0B just this past June, and we delivered 3 spacecraft for the NRO that were processed through that fancy new payload processing facility that Ted showed us. Awesome capability, first class. It's parallel, in my view, to anything that exists at the Cape or at Vandenberg in terms of the capability that exists in that payload processing facility. So really excited about that. The first stage of that rocket was 55 years old when it launched. So it just gives you a sense of how of the strategic motors that were built for the Minuteman program, how good they are, how long they can last in temperature-controlled storage in a silo. So excellent capability, and there's lots of those left to do these kind of missions. And now, I won't keep you waiting any longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Appreciate that. Our next panel member is Mr. Aaron Kuipers. He is the Launch Complex 2 Program Manager for Rocket Lab USA. Aaron Kuipers is the Program Manager for Launch Complex 2 located at the NASA Wallops Flight Facility. With over 19 years' experience in the aerospace industry, Aaron leads LC2's development and operations. Founded in 2006 by Peter Beck, Rocket Lab is delivering a new era of satellite technology by providing a tailored, responsive launch service. Rocket Lab broke ground for Launch Complex 2 in October of 2018 and is fully functional. Prior to joining Rocket Lab, Aaron began his career in the United States Marine Corps. Aaron continued a distinguished career at Orbital Sciences ATK as an engineer and developed several systems for the Missile Defense and Antares programs. Additionally, Aaron was the operations manager at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport, where he was responsible for maintenance and mission management. Aaron holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Arizona State University, as well as a master's degree in systems engineering from George Washington University. Aaron currently serves on the Virginia Space Flight Academy Board of Directors. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Aaron Kuipers.
Can you hear me okay? I'm going to probably walk around a little bit. Secretary Valentine, thank you. Thank you for all your support for Wallops. I'm getting a little emotional. I'll get past this in a second, I promise. Thank you. We really appreciate it. I'm going to go through a little bit of history here to kind of establish who I am and what I do, and then talk about Rocket Lab. But thank you. And as we go through my slide presentation, we'll demonstrate what the community, what the Commonwealth has done for the industry, for Wallops, and for Rocket Lab, and we'll get into that. So, General Mercer, welcome. We're excited to have you on board. You're a hard act to follow in presentations, so I hope I do okay here. But you have some tough reins to hold that Dale Nash set up. I think you're very capable, and I'm excited. We're going to go far with this. Dave Pierce, we work together daily. And I'm very excited to have Dave as a partner, as NASA and Rocket Lab and Virginia Space as we move forward. We got a solid partnership here. Kurt Eberly. Kurt hired me in 2006 at Orbital ATK. So Kurt and I go way back. And I just want to say, Kurt, thank you for trusting me and believing in me as an engineer at a young age. I appreciate that. Wouldn't be here without you. So as you can see in the industry, we're pretty tight. I grew up at Orbital ATK, Orbital Sciences, and then we eventually went to ATK. Kurt called me one day and said, hey, I got an Antares program. What do you think? So I started as a system engineer on the Antares program with Kurt. So it's a very exciting industry. I'm living proof that you can start with nothing and build up to something. So I'm excited about that. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail. I'm very excited about our partnerships, and I don't have a whole lot on Rocket Lab and Electron in the history. We can get into that later. I just wanted to explain the partnerships that we have with Virginia Space. I think that's most important. So the next slide. I think I've got the clicker. So Rocket Lab at Wallops Flight Facility. So this is where we can really describe what we have in a partnership. Agreement was signed late 2018 for Rocket Lab to build a launch complex at Wallops Flight Facility. As Ted explained very greatly, in 11 months, we built Launch Complex 2. 11 months, we broke ground, and we had a rocket ready to go on the pad in 11 months. That's unprecedented. You can't do that without a good partnership with NASA, with Northrop Grumman as a partner. We're in the same proximity. Northrop Grumman played with us and worked with us as a great partner. And the Commonwealth, you just can't say enough. I mean, we could not have done that without that partnership. There's a lot of technology that went in from Rocket Lab, but there's also the groundwork that went in for Virginia Space. Sean Mulligan and his team, world-class, first-class service. We went from, again, breaking ground to a full functional launch pad. That includes all the commodities, all the services, the electrical, everything you can think of from the standpoint of launching a rocket in 11 months. Unbelievable. That just explains it in itself. So I can't say enough about it. I think the picture says it. I wish we have a time lapse somewhere, I think, of the groundbreaking of the Bear Grounds and the timeline that we did it. And if you ever get a chance to see that, it's impressive. I don't know of any other industry that can do that in that time frame. We live in a class of professionals. The ICF, Integration Control Facility, as Ted mentioned, this building actually was built in, I think, about 11 months, a little bit less. The Integration Control Facility, I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper, but it does what it says in the name. We integrate the Electron rocket. As Ted said, we have space for 2 Electron rockets. We actually have space to expand into 4, which we hope to get to. We have a clean room space for payload processing. We have a launch control room, and we have space for our staff to run daily operations. We're excited to be in the building. The facility is world class, and we can't wait to get fully operational here with launches. On the next slide here, you can see this is just the operator. This is inside the ICF, Integration Control Facility. This is our office space. We have open office space. And we have a launch control room. It's kind of dark, so it's hard to see, but we have space for 21 operators. And we have all the pad cameras, everything hooked up through NASA and through Virginia Space of all the pad views you need for launch. We have the weather stations. We're tightly tied in with the NASA radio comms. So we can operate independently offsite with NASA support. And it just shows the flexibility that we can have with Virginia Space and NASA through those operations. So we're very excited to get this into operations very soon with Electron launch here in the next year. Next slide is just showing the ICF, Integration Control Facility again, clean room. This is where we can process a payload, and it is ISO 8, 100K certified for cleanliness. And then our ICF bay, that's where we can process Electron rocket at. You can see Electron in the bay currently. I'm going to pause for just a second before I jump to the next slide. So as you can see, our timeline demonstrates what we can do as a partnership at Virginia, in Virginia, with the Commonwealth, with NASA, with Northrop as a great partner and neighbor, and with Virginia Space. I think we can do it. There's nothing we can't do. We've demonstrated that with Electron and building a launch pad. Ted mentioned the neutron rocket. So there's exciting things coming. There's a really nice video released this morning by our founder, Peter Beck. If you get a chance, take a look at that. It's pretty exciting. We've got great things coming. I think we've demonstrated what we can do. We're just going to keep pushing that envelope further and harder as we go forward here. And Electron launches, I think we're on the record for doing, we're going to be looking at 12 missions a year. There's no doubt in my mind we can support that with the great support that we get. All right, so the next slide I want to talk about what it's like at Virginia Space. With Virginia Space. I'm going to pause again. I'm going to come back to that one. Sorry. The partnership with Virginia Space is basically, I know we wear different lapel pins and different shirts when we sit down at the table, but when we sit down and look at problems and things that we need to solve, we're a team. And those shirt colors and lapel pins don't matter. We sit down and say, what's the objective? And we say, this is the objective. We state it clearly, and we go off and work our different directions. And that's through the state. That's through the NASA regulations. That's through all the things that we need to do to make this work. I feel that very strongly, and I think it's, again, represented in what we've done in this very short time. So I'm very proud to be part of the Wallops organization. I'm very proud to be part of what we do, the charter that we have. We take that with highest responsibility. We take that also with DoD missions. We take that all across the board. That's not just commercial. That's we want to serve the country in the best way possible. And I think that's our charter. We take it responsibly, and we're going to move forward with it. All right. So last to do. How can we work together and get better? I think one of the things that we can do is get involved in the community. And this summer, we did a mission camp with the Virginia Space Flight Academy. And we got to see these young individuals with some inkling that they wanted to learn about rockets or be an astronaut. And we brought them into the Rocket Lab facility, and we showed them around, showed them the control room. And you can see the excitement in these young kids. And I think that's where it starts. That's the foundation that we need to lay. And I think that's Virginia Space does that greatly with the internship program, the STEM support. It's all there. We just need to keep working that and bolstering it and making it better. I'm very excited about that. I think that's our future. The future at Wallops couldn't be greater. With Dave's support, with the support from Virginia Space, I don't think we can get better. Every day just is something new, and we're very excited of where we're headed. And in the industry itself, if you just take the industry itself, if you just look at the news today, go look at Spaceflight Now, and look at all those web pages that support the industry. There's tons of things going on. It's very exciting in every direction. So it's just great to be part of it. We're excited to be part of the family at Wallops. We just can't wait to get launched in Electron, and I'll have some great videos to show like Kurt does coming up. So so that's my spiel on the support we're getting, and I really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I'm a living example of that, and if it wasn't for the great people that I sit up here with, I wouldn't be up here. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ted.
And our final panelist traveled to us all the way from Colorado Springs, Colonel Rich Lamb, and he's going to also represent one of our, in that STEMship panel members, Colonel Jim Horn. Colonel Jim Horn and Colonel Retired Rich Lamb are the co-leads for the U.S. Space Force Range of the Future Senior Steering Group. Chartered by the Chief of Staff of Operations, or the CSO, General John Raymond, the Range of the Future Senior Steering Group is charged with implementing the CSO's vision as defined by the U.S. Space Force Range of the Future 2028 Strategic Intent, published in February of 2020, as well as to oversee the management and execution of the Range of the Future cornerstones: architecture, infrastructure, operations business model, policy, major range and test facility base, and spaceports, which are inherently related to 4 priorities of the CSO's strategic intent. Further, the Range of the Future Senior Steering Group brings together subject matter experts from the spacelift mission community to conduct and/or support key Range of the Future activities to transform the U.S. Space Force's eastern and western ranges so they can organize and operate in a manner that will not constrain but greatly enable the growing space launch market. Colonel Lamb is currently the Systems Director for Range and Satellite Control Integration for the Aerospace Corporation, based at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Following over 22 years with the United States Air Force in nuclear missile, space operations, and communications command. Colonel Horn is unable to join us today, but he has sent a brief statement that Colonel Lamb will read on his behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Retired Rich Lamb.
Thank you. Amazing, huh? Hey, good morning, and it is indeed an honor to be with you and to represent both the Aerospace Corporation and the United States Space Force, in particular Space Systems Command. Let me start by reading the statement Colonel Horn asked me to make on his behalf. As the commercial space market continues to grow and as commercial space launch continues to expand, we look forward to a day where rockets operate in routine, daily launch and landing operations from a nationwide infrastructure of federal, state, and private spaceports, much as aviation operates from today. It is imperative in the nascent development of the nationwide capability that we work together to collaborate and synergize our efforts in terms of standards, processes, and implementation. As General Raymond's Range of the Future lead, we in U.S. Space Force and Space Systems Command look forward to engaging with you, Virginia Space, Mars, and your partners in order to create the world envy and normalize space flight capability, much as we have led the world in aviation operations to the present day. It is imperative from both an economic and national security perspective. That's from Colonel Warren. Before I make my comments, so that my comments can be taken into some type of context for you, let me refer to David's graphic chart that projected the future number of launches out here in Virginia Space and Wallops. If you noticed on that graph, there is a spike in the 25 timeframe. That 2025 timeframe and beyond represents a spike nationally at both the eastern and western ranges, Wallops, Spaceport, Alaska, and really globally. We expect a significant demand in the space launch activities due to a coming space economy that's projected to grow significantly, substantially over the next 20 to 30 years. So what I'm about to say, please take it in light of that context. As the FFRDC that supports the space enterprise, that space enterprise being Department of Defense, Department of Commerce, Department of Transportation, NASA, commercial space, the space launch industry, and even state agencies like Space Florida or Virginia Space. The Aerospace Corporation has, in many cases, very formal relationships and provide technical support to all of the space enterprise. In that row, aerospace is uniquely positioned to help bring a whole of government along with a whole of industry approach to developing a future national spaceport strategy. The coming space economy, all aspects of it, commerce, transportation, defense, exploration, is going to create a demand for world-class spaceports, and we should put in place a national spaceport strategy in advance of that. A strategy that will account for and enable growth of various economic clusters around our spaceports. I'm reminded of where our aviation sector was 100 years ago, dependent on government contracts to deliver the mail. Aviation visionaries, they weren't content on that business model being the end of the story. They saw much more for aviation and put that industry on a path that led to where we are today, where the U.S. has established the standards used internationally, airports that serve various sectors of their market, whether regional, national, or international, and airports with a myriad of economic clusters in and around our airports. We have a similar vision for space commerce and space transportation, and now is the time as we see the launch companies evolving from a dependency on national security or civil NASA space contracts and this large demand for space missions that a lot of our entrepreneurs are envisioning and moving out in, that soon commercial space launches will exceed 80% of all launches, where in the past national security space and NASA civil missions were the preponderance. We're headed quickly to a time where all launches will be commercially driven. Therefore, we have the opportunity today to build a coalition of the willing to shape our nation's future and lead the world in the coming space economy by building and establishing a national spaceport strategy. A strategy that will encompass policies, infrastructure, standards, leverage technology, and establish a federal spaceport grant program that's on par with the current aviation grant program. Aerospace and the United States Space Force, through this senior steering group that Ted mentioned, we look forward to working with Virginia Space, Mars, NASA, along with all the other spaceports, with the space industry, with academia, with all our partners to shape the future and to shape the future missions of commercial space for our nation. Thank you.
Okay, I know that we're a bit over on our time. I hope that we have time to at least get one question. And I have one ready if nobody else does for our panel. Yes, sir.
I guess I have to read very well. The commercial success of rocket return, is that ever going to come to Wallops? And the second part is the percentage of, no, I can really boom it. The percentage of rockets that are going to be recovered between now and 1930, or will there be a pile off Wallops of used rockets?
Anybody want to take that one?
See if I can address that. So your first question was, will we be returning rockets by 2030? Ever. Yeah, the future is looking like that's where we're headed. We have nothing on record yet, but we're looking at options to do that. So there's a lot of safety implications, the range safety aspect that we have to look at and make sure that we hit the reliability numbers before we can look at returning a rocket.
That's right. We're currently working with Rocket Lab,
Sorry,
with our range safety organization, our engineering organization, to look at and study that. And of course, working with Ted and Virginia Space. And Virginia Space has been working on a deep water port so that we could bring those boosters back to the island and then rapidly refurbish those. So it is in the plans. Yes, sir.
Other questions? Okay, maybe one final one. Oh, here's.
Well, General Mercer and panelists, thank you very much. My question has to do with your workforce and workforce housing. Where do people live who work at Wallops, and do you have a housing shortage, or do you have plenty of housing, or what can this industry do to help you perhaps with that challenge?
I'd be glad to try to take that. So of our complex that's nearly 2,000 employees, about 55% live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, 45% live in the state of Maryland. 90% of our employees that live in Virginia live in Accomack County. And so they live fairly close to the facility. Housing is growing. There's not a shortage, but we anticipate, as Rocket Lab envisions developing a manufacturing facility, which manufacturing for aerospace is a big deal in Virginia. This is what's going to enable Virginia to be #1 in aviation and aerospace in the country, is that manufacturing component. And with that, your question is right on. Housing, we are working very closely with the Navy, Virginia Space, to develop child care options, to attract younger employees, our best and brightest. We need to provide for those bread and butter issues. The Commonwealth is working really hard on broadband. These are the kinds of enabling institutional support that we need to provide for the workforce of the future. So you're right on. And housing is being planned in Accomack County, both in the northern part and toward the middle of the county, to attract that future workforce. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. We are indeed out of time, but before we go, we do have some thank yous to say, not only to our panel members for joining us. Please, a round of applause for a great panel. And
Thank you,
thank you,
Ted.
Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kurt, thank you. Eric, thank you. Thank you very much. And then, none of this gets done or put together without a team of people behind the scenes doing this. And so for us, from the Virginia Space side, is Kimberly Reed still in the back, behind the scenes back there somewhere? Is she still here? There she is. She's waving in the back. Kimberly Reed. We talked about our transition of our interns to our hiring force. One of the interns you saw that graduated in the 2021 class, we hired him. His name is Carter Birch. Carter Birch helped put that video together and do the magic on that video screen for us. That was young Carter Birch that did that for us. So I want to give him a shout out. And during that video, you heard a voice in the background prior to every launch that during the launch count that said, "Mars is go." I don't know if you picked that up or not, but prior to every launch, Mars is go. That's Mr. Sean Mulligan, the COO for the operations board. Sean Mulligan is one of the original plank holders, has been involved with Virginia Space through now almost all 3 of the executive directors, and he is truly one of the linchpins that make all that stuff you saw on the video work. So my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Sean Mulligan. Thank you, panel members. Thank you all.